What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? Before we get into today's video, I do want to talk to you very quickly about Decimation Earth. This is a comic that, if you are familiar with my Blerd caves on Saturdays, I actually had the creators of Decimation Earth on my show a few months ago, and they were showing off some of the stuff that they had coming up, but now those seeds have come to bear fruit, and they are ready to show off Decimation Earth #2. Now, for the uninitiated, if you don't know what Decimation Earth is about, it's basically the story of this eldritch universe, and how these characters who come from incredibly different backgrounds, characters like Gideon, who is the stalwart soldier, characters like Paris, who is arguably one of the most dangerous and at the same time worst people on the face of the universe, and others like Ozymandias and Gravestone are interweaved into this story that spans from the ancient prehistoric era through a darker gothic steampunk modern era in the 20th century and the far-flung future of 2270. In this comic, you will find all kinds of amazing stuff. You will find supernatural horror. You will find arcane magic. You'll find super science. You'll find superheroes. You'll see all kinds of crazy stuff, all centered around an Afrofuturism version of Lovecraft's work. If any of what I said sounds interesting to you, you should go check out their Kickstarter. They are raising money to try and get a print run of Decimation Earth 2 out and onto shelves, so go check it out. The link will be down in the description below or in a pinned comment. Go check it out, and let's get on with the video. And to do that, we're going to be talking about X-Force number 14 by Benjamin Percy and Jerry Duggan, with art by Joshua Cassera. And in this video, we are going to see more of Saturnine's obsession with Brian Braddock returning to the mantle of Captain Britain, and how his spurning her advances is going to cause her to run up the score on Krakoa, and more importantly, Storm is finally gonna have her battle one-on-one with death. And we're gonna find out whether or not, even at her weakest, can she defeat him. We're gonna talk about all that and more right now. But first, wash your damn hands! And let's hit that intro.
Word to wise, grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Admittedly, Ten of Swords has been an incredibly weird comic, and I think that goes without saying. I think anyone who has read this, who is prepared for this, the thing you'll probably take away from all of this, once you really get down to the nitty-gritty of it, you will realize you are reading a very strange, twisted tale of a contest that is being manipulated by a spurned lover, and that's really the meat and potatoes of it. There's nothing to hide there. All of this is centered around the fact that Saturnine is pissed that Brian Braddock, won't screw her, and more importantly, won't be Captain Britain. But there are some interesting shenanigans that are going to go on here, because as we see, one of the first things we notice in this comic is that Saturnine is going to make Magic and Pog have a rematch. Now, granted, we're not taking any points away or anything like that. This isn't like a run it back style deal where we can erase what came before. But no, this time, instead of having an arm wrestling contest, they're just gonna have a straight up fist fight. Once again, Pog immediately lifts Magic off her feet and swallows her whole. But this was probably the worst possible thing that he could have done, because Magic has been paying attention to Pog and studying him ever since they got on Otherworld. So she's begun to notice that something is up with him. All of that staring and hemming and hawing that her and Gorgon did while they were in the Starlight Citadel for issues of Marauders, both number 14 and 15, it has finally paid off, because she notices that Pog is not exactly Pog. You see, Pog is not actually some giant monster that the Iraqi have brought along with them. No, it's actually a weapon. There's a wee little goblin creature who pilots him. Magic has figured out that Pog basically means sword in Iraqi, and that the giant alligator creature that we've been seeing is literally just a sword in and of itself. Now, Magic doesn't kill Pog, or rather the creature that was inside of him, because we do wind up seeing him later. But she is able to score a point for Krakoa, bringing everything a little bit closer, where Rocco is only up by 2 points, 5 to Krakoa's 3. But where things get more interesting is how Saturnine, recognizing this, she begins running up the score yet again, holding contests where Brian Braddock and War must see who can outlast the other in a game of who can suffer the most torture. The Iraqi and the Krakoans having to push giant boulders up a hill, and then of course the Iraqi going against themselves, trying to survive some kind of Subnautica nightmare, and then what is essentially an Iraqo versus Krakoa episode of Fear Factor, eating all sorts of strange and unusual creatures and their brains and guts, and yeah. And it doesn't end there. There's a dancing contest. There's even a contest where they have to navigate some kind of weird MC Escher / labyrinth style maze, putting together puzzles, and even a runway contest. There's even another, presumably, where they have to travel and navigate the realm of Blightspoke. And in just about every contest that they have had to some degree or another, the Iraqans have won, even the dancing contest. And though surprisingly, they lost the runway contest, but of course Krakoa was going against themselves when they were doing the puzzle contest, so that's the only reason why they have the 5 points that they do. But where things get more troubling is when Saturnine has tasked Ryan Braddock with a race against Red Root, who we learn is not very fleet of foot. Red Root is actually incredibly slow, and this is a foot race, but it's a rigged one. It's a rigged foot race, and Saturnine has brought Muscle along to ensure that Captain Avalon doesn't win. These guys literally hold Brian Braddock down while Red Root gets away with her race through the crooked market. And of course, Mad Jim Jaspers tells us that there's always a finish line to be found in the crooked market if you know where to look. Well, apparently it was only a few feet in front of them, because Red Root has not even made it 10 feet from where they originally started and has already won the race. Now, for those who are keeping score, Araco is now up 13 points to Krakoa's 5. Everything in the crooked market has a price. This is where things get interesting, because Red Root, as she was passing by Captain Avalon during the race, she knocked into something and broke it. A crystal idol that was housing the tears of a Ubagonian princess. And the item was priceless, and now Red Root must pay. And because Red Root does not have money, Red Root has been shrunken down and placed in a glass jar in much the way Brainiac would normally house, random civilizations and planets. And because Brian Braddock caused even more damage in fighting off Saturnine's muscle, Brian Braddock either has to pay for the damage, which Saturnine even admits is incalculable, and if he doesn't pay it, he will have to spend, well, she doesn't really say how long, but she does pretty much imply he'll probably spend an eternity in their oubliette, unless he asks her for her help. And you know what she's gonna want in return. She's gonna want him to take the mantle of Captain Britain. And the contest continues on. We see Wolverine face off with a white sword in a stare at every person you ever killed contest, to whoever blinks loses, which Wolverine does lose, and Magic has to spell the answer to a riddle, which essentially is what is Saturnine made of. And for someone whose name is Magic cannot actually spell magic correctly. Now, I think this may be a callback to something, and maybe it may be something that I missed, or maybe it was just Magic being as brazen and cocky as she typically is and just not thinking. It seems like such a major blunder that you would think Magic wouldn't have fallen for that one. The Krakoans lose the contest, where they must resist the call of the rock sirens, and War seemingly has no trouble killing a cute little kitten. It's at this point we finally get to Storm. Storm's contest is a bit more of the one we typically expected, where Storm is facing off with Death, the fight that has been teased since before Ten of Swords began. The problem is that Storm, she is still being affected by that weird liquor that Mad Jim Jaspers had her and Wolverine drink in Wolverine number 7. And what we learn is that that special drink was called Blightswill. It's basically distilled from the land of Blightspoke. It's the blood of all the planets and realities that make up the graveyard of reality that is Blightspoke. And what it does is it seeks to take what it once had, and that's power. Now, Wolverine has a healing factor, so he was able to run run that liquor through his system a little faster, even though that same liquor was robbing him of his healing factor. Storm doesn't have a healing factor, so it just robbed her of her powers and is taking so much longer to get out of her system. So Storm, as I suspected in Wolverine number 7, is going to have to fight death solo dolo, regular degular, no powers, no nothing. But remember what I said about Storm, and especially what I mentioned about her in my breakdown video of her character and her history just about a couple of months ago. I said that Storm has defeated some of the most powerful and most dangerous people in all of the Marvel Comics universe, even without using her powers, and in some cases while she was debilitated. And while they fight on the vampire-run realm of Sevalith, Storm must hold her own against a being who can literally look at you and kill you. Storm recognizes what's going on. This is actually eerily similar to when she faced off with Callisto in Uncanny X-Men number 170. She can't feel the current, she can't feel the electricity, the hum of electricity she normally feels. She can't feel the wind, she can't feel her connection to nature, but that's not going to stop her. She's not going to waste the opportunities that she's been given, the choices that she's had to make. Storm has been resolved in everything that she has done since the beginning of all this. Go back to Marauders number 13, where she took the Skybreaker from Wakanda. She knew what this meant. This wasn't just some lip service that she did. She didn't betray Wakanda and the love of her life, T'Challa, just to take a pretty sword. She knew that she had to fight for her people, and she knew that it was going to cost everything, and she's not going to waste this moment. She's not going to allow death to take her so easily, to the point that she destroys the black bone of Amduat using the Skybreaker, and in doing so forces Death's hand to remove his helmet, because he's done playing games with her, and when he removes the helm, he plans to use the Eyes of Death to kill Storm once and for all. But once again, Storm is no slouch in a fight. She is not some idiot. She has been the stalwart leader of the X-Men for decades on end, for the majority of the time that she's been a character in the Marvel Comics universe. She's a skilled fighter. She's a skilled tactician. Put some respect on her name. She uses the Skybreaker to block her eyes, shield them from the Eyes of Death, because one thing we know for certain, the Eyes of Death do in fact require the target to look back in their eyes. Death can't just look at you and automatically kill you. You have to make eye contact with him, as we posited in Marauders number 15. Not only does she use the Skybreaker to block her eyes and shield them from his gaze, but she uses it to reflect his gaze back at himself, causing him to be affected by his own power. She basically pulled the classic move of Perseus in Clash of the Titans, using a reflective surface to shine back the gaze of a dreaded foe. And while Death is under the effects of his own gaze, she plunges the Skybreaker directly into his solar plexus. Not only that, she leaves him to be drained dry by the vampires of Sevalith. This is also really interesting just for the fact that we know Storm has a history with vampires. We know about the character Bloodstorm and all that other stuff. I just found it really interesting that, they fought on a planet run by vampires, and Storm, even while broken, even while drained of her abilities, still was able to run that fade on Death and left him to get eaten by vampires. There's something poetic about it. But anyways, it was a moral victory, because Krakoa is still in the hole to Arako's 17 points versus Krakoa's 6, and something's gonna have to happen in order to change their fate. Storm definitely got them a moral victory. She definitely got them the dub, but it's only going to mean so much if they can't catch up. And honestly, it's gonna take, and I've already read ahead, I'm going to right now, it's gonna take a really weird twist to make that work. But that said, I really enjoyed this issue. The whole idea of the whole Ten of Swords contest, which I know a lot of people, it has been a major point of contention for a lot of readers who feel like, oh, they lied to us, Marvel didn't give us exactly what they promised, which technically they didn't promise anything. Technically you did get some sword fights in there, but we also got to remember this is Otherworld. It's a weird place, and Saturnine is a mercurial being. I keep saying this. Her desires, her wants, and her needs wax and in ways, not with the phases of the moon, but probably with the consistency of Memphis weather. It changes every 5 minutes. And all of that together, one has to wonder, what is her actual end game beyond Brian Braddock becoming Captain Britain again, and more importantly, what she's doing with Betsy Braddock. I was really proud of the writing. I was really proud of what Jerry Duggan and Benjamin Percy were able to put together in this issue for Storm to once again remind readers. I think sometimes readers forget that Storm does get a lot of moments to shine. She may not get them in every single solitary issue of every single X-Men comic in existence, which I think that's what a lot of the diehard fans want, but honestly, that wouldn't do her any favors either. She would just become another Batman or another Superman if that was the case. I think it's actually a good thing that they spread these moments out, and honestly, if you read the comics consistently, you'll notice that Storm gets respect put on her name on the reg. I think a lot of people forget how long she led the X-Men between the time of like 1975 up to now. For the majority of 3 decades, and she's well on her way to 4. And I don't mean like a second in command leader. I mean, there are points in time, you go back, if you know which X-Men comics to read, she has legit been the HM IC, the head mutie in charge. Anyways, issue was great. Thought it was awesome. It showcased a lot more of the weirdness of Otherworld and this contest, and how it's not going to be your typical Shonen Jump tournament arc in some Naruto, My Hero Academia, Dragon Ball Z style anime, which honestly, I think is probably for the best. But anyways, let me know what you thought about X-Force number 14 by Benjamin Percy, Jerry Duggan, with art by Joshua Cassara. Do you think the X-Men can pull it back? Do you think the X-Men can get those points back? Do you think that there are any more tricks to the Araki that we don't know about yet? Wash your damn hands and sound off in the comments. So hey, you made it to the end of the video. Awesome for you. If you enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far, I don't see how you didn't, do me a favor. Hulk smash that like button. And if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you click subscribe so you can become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers, and tap that bell so you know when I post up. Also, feel free to go check out my Patreon, where if you chuck in a buck, you can get early access to most of my videos up to a week early. And if you have time, make sure you swing by nerd901.com, where you can find more of my content as well as other amazing stuff. Anyways, until next time, I love you 3000 plus Ultra!